Just pull yourself together, Doug. Do you want to talk about it?
No, not quite.
My wife Connie has just returned from the weekend with her lover. It started 6 months ago. At first, she used the legend that she was going to spend time with her mother, but in the last few months, she just walked away without explaining anything. I was too trusting, so I couldn't figure out what was going on for quite a while. Calvin Bostic was my wife's boyfriend before I met her. After working together for several years, he decided to join the Air Force and left Connie. I picked her up, married her, and we had 2 children. Life was great for 23 years, and then everything went wrong. Our son Robert got a job at the Baltimore Post Office, and our daughter Dawn got married and moved to Allentown. I expected life to be better without children, but I was wrong. I work for my Uncle Simon as a gravel truck driver. It's hard work, but it pays well. We drive 2 late model cars, and we don't have credit card bills. We were planning to make a small renovation in the house. When things got hectic at home, I decided to do a little investigation. Connie's mother lived in Pottsville, but Connie stayed with Calvin in Frankville. Frankville is not that big, so I had no problem finding his house. It was a small rented apartment in the old part of the city. I stopped and talked to my mother-in-law and discovered that Connie hadn't been in for weeks, and when she did, it was only for an hour or so. When were you going to tell me about your weekend with Calvin? Connie put down her travel bag and plopped down on the couch. I couldn't tell if she felt relieved or annoyed. Calvin retired from the Air Force last March and rented a house in Frankville. He took my sister's phone number, and we got together to remember the old days. All weekend. Doug, Calvin, and I were lovers long before we got married. We have a connection. There is a compatibility and intimacy between us that I have never had with you. It just feels natural to be with him. You mean you two are soulmates? Yes, I know it's corny, but it's true. What about us? What kind of relationship have we had for 23 years? I'm sorry, Doug. We all have to make choices in life. When you can't get what you want, you have to choose an alternative. When Calvin left, you were my alternative. 23 years old and 2 children, and I was just an alternative? Damn it, Doug. Don't be so dramatic. I was a good wife and mother. Now I want to live a little for myself. There was silence for a few moments. Does he know you're married? Yes, and he understands. He knows that he did the wrong thing by leaving this way, and he regrets it. He understands that marrying you was what I had to do, and he forgives me for that. What? He forgives you for marrying me. Are you crazy? Doug, relax. Why are you so upset? I'm just a little curious, Connie. Why didn't you just move in with him? He's in trouble with the law right now. His ex-wife has filed for divorce and is demanding 48% of his Air Force pension. He thinks it would be better if we kept our relationship a secret. Is he working? He's still in transition. There aren't many ground equipment specialists in the area, and he wants to stay here. So, Connie, what are your plans? I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I watched as my wife picked up her travel bag and headed to the bedroom. I spent the night in the living room in a reclining chair. On Monday morning, after Connie left for work, I finalized everything. I started with the bank and insurance. Closing accounts and canceling insurance policies have significantly increased my cash flow. I had a pre-approved home improvement loan for $30,000. My '57 Chevrolet brought me almost $20,000. I used my Harley Fat Boy again. I paid the fine and cashed out my savings. There were 4 Krugerrands in the safe deposit box. Unfortunately, Uncle Simon didn't have a retirement plan that I could count on. I was planning an unexpected 6-month cruise for our 25th wedding anniversary. Connie didn't know that I had been saving money for him for 6 years. That earned me another $30,000. I had no problems finding a buyer for my rigs. I cashed out my Krugerrands. The Riverside Public Housing Project looked the same as it did 25 years ago. However, Hector Cordetti looked different. Hector and I grew up together. His mother was Dominican and his father was Italian. He became bigger, hairier, and uglier than I remembered him. It was a wonderful reunion. We finished a 6-pack of beer, and I gave him a picture and all the information I had. About Calvin Bostic. His eyes lit up when I put the documents and the keys to the fat man in front of him. Doug, this is too much. You don't have to ask me for a favor. We know each other too well. I can do anything you want for free. That's not the point. I'm leaving town and I need to find a house for this. You were the first one I thought of. Use it. Take care of it. And if you still have it when I get back, you can give it back to me. In the meantime, if you need money or anything else, just sell the damn thing. Make it easier for yourself. Okay? Anyway, I'm going to beat this guy up a little bit and send him to the hospital. This is all. But if he doesn't understand my message, I would advise you to wait a couple of months. And if he is still dating Connie, visit him again. After 2 visits to the emergency room, he should understand what is the matter. The arrogant fool really needs an attitude adjustment. When do you want it to be done? Wait about 2 weeks. And then what? I'll be gone for a long time. No phone, no mail, no contacts. Maybe I'll send you a Christmas card. It's good that we finished our beer, otherwise I would have stayed here all night. Connie wasn't home when I got there. I planned to travel light because I would have problems with housing in the future. Connie had fulfilled her heart's desire, and I was also going to fulfill mine. Scandinavian Tugboat 26. All men have dreams or aspirations. My plan was quite simple, but it still remained unattainable. There was no way in the world I could convince her to live on a yacht. Now I didn't have to worry about it. The hardest thing was to find something that I could afford to buy and still live on it. The internet is a great place to shop. When I arrived, my son Robert had just returned from work. He seemed surprised to see me, so I assumed he hadn't spoken to his mother in a long time. I briefly outlined the situation to him, trying not to scold Connie, but I told him everything. Anyway, he was unhappy, of course, but he understood. Robert was going to keep a few things for me while I was traveling, like my birth certificate and my Army discharge certificate. He also agreed to be my contact person if I needed anything. I transferred the truck's license to him and told him where to pick him up in Annapolis. He was still single, but he had a steady girlfriend who, he said, could become his wife. I spent the night with him, and in the morning we both left at the same time. I thought it was funny that my phone was on the whole time, but my wife never called me. Later, I had breakfast in Annapolis before heading to the marina. We've been doing business all morning. After lunch, I conducted a full inspection of all operating and safety systems. I was glad that I had previously received a BS&S certificate from the Coast Guard. Using Yammer's maintenance manual and a service technician, I was able to compile an assortment of spare parts and additional tools that I might need. I had no intention of becoming a qualified marine mechanic. I just wanted to know enough to contact the nearest service center if necessary. I have a complete set of IQA maps, as well as lists of all marinas on the East Coast and in the Gulf of Mexico, one set for my ebook and another in a spiral binding. The employees of the Marine office were more than happy to help me set up my new kitchen and pantry. One of the small indulgences that I allowed myself was the purchase of a small set of solar panels and a complete set of liquid crystal lighting for the yacht. I felt like I could work on it at my leisure on leisurely days. Everything went smoothly. That evening, Robert's girlfriend took him to the marina. I gave them a tour of the yacht and we had dinner together. He drove home in a truck. I was free. Early the next morning, I quietly left the marina with 350 liters of fuel and 220 liters of water. I would have had enough money for a year if I hadn't spent it on fuel. Any serious mechanical problems would probably break me. I had no choice but to walk forward with my fingers crossed. I spent the next 2 weeks getting to know my new toy. I figured out how to achieve minimum fuel consumption. I got used to the instruments and electronics. Most marinas and coastal restaurants had free Wi-Fi. I downloaded a bunch of books to my ebook and also took several more courses for the Coast Guard, including safety and weather conditions. I made a note that in the future, care should be taken to connect the onboard internet system. I wasn't really going anywhere, but I gradually realized that I was moving south. The time was approaching when I had to go on my journey. I was a little worried. but at the same time a little cautious. I had no experience, but I had nothing to lose. Take action. I quickly realized that eating at restaurants on the marina or in coastal restaurants would greatly affect my willingness to travel. I was going to learn some of the tricks of cooking on board. I downloaded a few more books. At one stage of the journey, it seems there were problems with my limited fuel supply. I brought a collapsible fuel tank just in case I needed it. I restocked the pantry. I connected my wonderful solar panel system to a small battery for a lawnmower, which is hidden in a hiding place. It provided liquid crystal lighting throughout the boat and even gave me a cute little charging station for my phone and ebook. I was leaving the Hunger River heading for Bloodworth Island when I noticed a young girl waving her arms frantically. She was standing at the stern of a large white yacht that seemed to have run aground on the scrubby coastline. In the fading daylight, only the back of the yacht was visible. As I got closer, I noticed that it was Chris Kraft's big yacht. Apart from the uncomfortable position she was in, she seemed to be in pristine condition. There were no lights on, no signs of life, except for the girl waving her arms. I forgot about her for a moment as I became more interested in the yacht. "Hello, could you help me?" She wasn't as young as I first thought. She was probably in her late 30s, and she was wearing what looked like a cocktail dress. "Do you want me to radio in or call for help?" "My God, no. Whatever you do, don't call anyone. Can I take you somewhere?" By this time, the tug had come alongside the Chris Kraft. I turned off the engine. "Yes, in a minute, but first I need to do something." "Have you run out of fuel?" "Maybe. I don't know." He just stopped. "Where were you going?" "Nowhere in particular." "Why all these questions?" "Just curious." "What do you need to do?" "Do you have gas?" "Gasoline won't help you. It runs on diesel fuel." "I know that. Do you have gasoline or not?" I grabbed a 10-liter can of gasoline from the back warehouse and handed it to her over the handrails. She disappeared into the front of the boat and returned a few seconds later. Now I had a pretty good idea what she was going to do, so I quietly loosened the tether. She returned the empty jar, as well as a set of rocket launchers that was at the helm. Holding onto the clutch, she climbed over the handrails and jumped into the tug. "Permission to come aboard, sir." I couldn't help but smile at the creepy humor. When I dropped the cable and started the engine, she opened the flare. I was backing the tug, and she loaded and fired right into the stern of the boat. Surprisingly, the first time she hit right on target, there was no explosion. The fire spread slowly from the stern to the bow. We were about 30 meters away from the ship when it was completely engulfed in flames. Sometime later, 2 muffled explosions were heard, followed by a lot of smoke. By that time, it was already dark, and it was difficult to see anything. "Hello. My name is Sky. What's your name?" 10 minutes later, after a brief introductory conversation, my new partner was fast asleep. While I was chatting, she dozed off. It was okay because I had to concentrate a little bit to get back to the main conversation. I had no idea what was going on, but I felt it might be important to put more distance between us and the smoldering wreck that was once an intact cruiser with cabins. Night walks are very relaxing, even though you have to pay a little more attention to what you were doing. At that time, I was a little nervous due to the circumstances, so a quiet pastime was relaxing, but did not cause drowsiness. I was able to throw a light blanket over my guest without waking her up. She was dressed inappropriately for such a situation. When the sun came up, I found a nice quiet place to turn off the route. As soon as the coffee started to boil, my guest stuck her head through the hatch. "Good morning, Doug. I'm sorry I dozed off last night. The coffee smells delicious. Where the hell are we? Where's the bathroom?" It turned out that she likes to chat. I tossed her a t-shirt and a pair of sweatpants. Under the circumstances, it was the best thing I could do. 5 minutes later, we were both sitting comfortably on the deck with steaming coffee in our hands. The t-shirt was a little too big for her, but the sweatpants, which were too long, seemed to fit her hips very well. "Well, Miss Sky, could you explain to me what the hell is going on? Or is it none of my business?" "Actually, my name is Mrs. Daniel Cordell. I've only been married for 6 weeks, and it looks like it's already over. I take it that the boat you left behind belonged to your husband. Yes, it was a magnificent sight, wasn't it? I suppose you had a pretty good reason for doing what you did. Absolutely. The traffic on the canal was slow, but it was nice to just sit in silence and watch the ships passing by. I filled both mugs, and we sat in silence for a few more minutes. I wanted to know more, but I didn't want to seem too curious. I decided to let the events unfold on their own. Doug, do you mind if I call my dad? I don't want him to worry about me. No problem. I need to do something. Take your time. Of course, most of the things I had to do were a bit superficial. I finally found out exactly where we are and updated the fuel and water consumption. Data. A good 20 minutes had passed when my uninvited guest raised her head. Doug, if you're not too busy, my father would like to talk to you. Do you mind? She handed me the phone and ducked back down. Hello. I thought it was a pretty clever start. Mr. Martin, my name is Franklin Graves. I'm Sky's father, of course. My daughter got into a little trouble, and I want to ask you a little favor. Go on. Could you leave my little girl on board for a few days while I sort out some issues? Of course, I will make sure that you are properly compensated for the inconvenience caused. I'm afraid I have a very small ship, Mr. Graves. I don't think she'll be very comfortable. I don't want her to be comfortable. I want her to be safe. Safe. You don't even know me. How can it be considered safe to leave your daughter with a stranger? This is the best alternative that I have. And besides, it's her idea, not mine. I'm sorry. That's not going to happen. I'll take her to Yorktown. Arrange for her to be picked up there. I'll call you back later tonight. Please let me talk to Sky again. I spent the next hour trying to figure out why the name Franklin Graves seemed familiar to me while my passenger was figuring out how to use a compact shower. Of course, she used too much water. I needed to talk to her about it. I was wondering what was taking her so long when she called out to me, Doug. Breakfast is ready. I didn't expect anything like this, so I was pleasantly surprised to see a plate of hot omelet and ham. I was amazed that she could navigate the kitchen so easily. It was quite delicious. We didn't talk much during the meal. After quickly tidying up, we returned to the cockpit and sat down again at the tables with fresh coffee. Why did you refuse my father, Doug? Very few people say no to my father. Your father doesn't know me, and I don't know you. I didn't like what he suggested. I'd rather just drop you off somewhere than get involved in something that doesn't concern me. My father said the same thing, but I told him that I felt safe with you and would prefer to stay with you if possible. Why did you say something like that? I'm a good judge of character. Good. Tell me about your husband. Daniel was my father's choice. It was a mistake. I told my father it was a mistake, but he didn't listen to me. Now I'm in a difficult situation, and the only way out is to ask my father for help. Doug, I make a lot of mistakes. I really don't want to go to my father again. It's not fair to him. He tried his best to raise me to be a responsible person, and I keep letting him down. I need help, but right now I also have to get out of this stupid situation. I secured all the cables and took the helm. 5 minutes later, we were moving slowly south. I returned to the canal and relaxed a little while Sky sat quietly in the cabin. 2 hours later, I heard her cell phone ring again. She handed it to me. All right, Mr. Martin, I have no reason not to trust you with my daughter anymore. It took a couple of hours, but you did pretty well. I'm sorry about your family problems, but you seem to be handling them well. Will you be able to be in Yorktown by tomorrow? It took a while to realize what he was saying. I'm not dumb or slow-witted, but I'm a little careful. Mr. Martin, are you here, Mr. Martin? Yes, I'm still here. I just need time to think about it. Take your time. Do you think you can be in Yorktown tomorrow? If so, then dock at Wormley Creek Marina. I'll have someone meet you there. If someone's going to meet us there, why can't she just leave with them? I don't quite understand. Mr. Martin, I believe you have a trip planned along the coast. I don't want to interfere with your trip, but I'd like you to take Sky with you for a week or so. Think of it as interesting entertainment. Mr. Graves, I am not ready to receive guests, and your daughter does not have any clothes or personal belongings for such a trip. Everything will be taken care of tomorrow. Don't worry about it. Can I talk to my daughter, please? It was almost noon when we docked at Wormley Creek Wharf. A middle-aged man in a suit and a woman in her 20s who looked like she was wearing sports clothes were waiting for our arrival. Sky waved to the couple as we disembarked. It was obvious that she knew this lady well. We joined them at a table outside overlooking the docks. Mr. Graves, my name is Marshall, and this is Miss Templeton. We will try to make our meeting as short as possible. Why? I have plenty of time left. You don't have to rush because of me. Can I have a cold beer? I noticed that Sky giggled a little when I said that. He opened the briefcase on the chair next to him and took out several thick paper folders. I groaned a little when I saw them, and he noticed it. I'm sorry, Mr. Graves. Just a few minor formalities. I'm afraid I'm going to have to interrupt you for a while, Miss Templeton announced. Sky and I have some business to settle. We'll be back in about an hour. Have fun. Have lunch. I'll see you soon. Take your time. Marshall seemed a little embarrassed by her levity, but I found it refreshing. Over the next 30 minutes, Marshall said a lot of shit. New cell phones, special credit cards, and a small wad of cash. I was a little confused when he presented the forms of medical powers of attorney. Since she was only going to be with me for a week or so, I didn't see the need for that. He stressed that it was just a precautionary measure and there was nothing to worry about. The situation had gone too far, and I began to worry. With an exasperated sigh, I insisted on another beer and a snack. He agreed. It seemed very strange to me that I didn't get any background or information about the situation other than what I already knew. Sky was an unhappy newlywed who quarreled with her husband and decided to run away from home. In the process, she successfully destroyed a yacht worth $500,000 for nothing. Now her daddy wanted me to babysit her, seemingly indefinitely. I didn't know anything about this girl, except that she was a spoiled brat. Only a fool would even think about it. Marshall and I finished our lunch and had some more beer when the girls returned. They brought armfuls of what I assumed were suitable clothes and quickly began to lay them out in the cabin. That's when things got serious. In addition to unlimited credit cards, Marshall reported the amount of money her father was willing to pay for my services and even opened a special bank account in my name. The deposit will be paid monthly while I'm with her. What the hell happened to a week or so? Overnight, someone, but not me, decided that this agreement would be long-term and did not even think that it was so important to discuss it with me. Naturally, I got angry. Before I could vent my anger properly, Marshall showed me a copy of the first bank deposit. The amount was, to put it mildly, staggering. No matter how angry I was, I couldn't refuse. Mr. Marshall, I don't want to sound ungrateful, but could you give me an idea of what time frame we're talking about? He just shrugged his shoulders. Marshall and Miss Templeton soon left. I thought it was funny when Marshall billed me for lunch and the bar. Damn it. I had so much money now that I didn't care. I was about to leave and looked at my new ward. Lucy, you have a lot to explain. She giggled at my terrible Desirness accent. We left the marina and headed south to the English Channel, found a cozy, quiet bay, and settled down there for the rest of the day. None of us were hungry, so we just had a snack and drank beer. The Sky family was incredibly rich in real estate, very old money, and a lot of it. Her husband, Daniel, came from new money, mostly from Wall Street. She didn't know too much about what his family did, but she knew that his family was richer than her father's. She didn't know him very well, and it was almost a marriage of convenience. I looked at her strangely when she said that, and she moaned in response. Sky had only been married for 6 weeks when her husband decided it would be a good idea to share his wife with several fraternity members. He decided that Chris Craft would be a good place to have a party. Everything did not go as he had planned. Her father was in the process of getting divorced. She learned from Miss Templeton that Daniel was furious. She not only put him in an awkward position in front of the fraternity members, but also deprived him of the yacht, which was the pride of the family. The family was angry at Daniel, and his friends laughed at him. He had publicly vowed revenge at all costs, and that was why her father was as worried as she was. It is not known what kind of revenge he imagined, but her father did not want to take any chances. It got a little cramped in tow. A new body and a whole bunch of new clothes have significantly reduced the amount of free storage space. What was once a convenient place to live has now become less convenient. Sky had some boating experience as a child, so she wasn't completely useless. Together, we have found the easiest and best way to succeed. I was amazed at how well we worked together. She readily took on the tasks related to maintaining cleanliness in tow while I focused on mechanical and operational problems. She liked to plan meals and cook. We have established a regular schedule of shopping and laundry at our gas stations. Normally, I wouldn't spend money on laundry services, but it wasn't considered normal anymore, so we spent it. We didn't cover many kilometers, but we had a good time and enjoyed the trip. I was living in the moment and enjoying it. All thoughts of my previous problems quickly disappeared, and then I made the mistake of deciding to call my son. Robert, it's Dad. I just thought I'd like to let you know my status and find out how things are at home. Just in time. It's been almost 3 months. What the hell have you been doing? I was just walking and dosing. Everything is perfect on my part. What's going on in Pennsylvania? For starters, Mom is furious. You took care of everything and arranged it well before you left. She called here several times and eventually stopped when I convinced her that we had no idea where you were. However, she knows about the boat. Some documents were accidentally sent to the old address, and she figured out what pretty quickly. Sooner or later it had to come out. What is she doing about it? I don't know. However, she and the bank tried to negotiate this. It seems that because of the mortgage and the loan to repair the house, she does not have the opportunity to continue payments. Heck, she can't even afford to pay the utility bills. What is she going to do? We got a job at Target, but they don't pay much there, and she doesn't work 40 hours. She sells things to make ends meet. Of course, your things flew in the first place. I should have brought my tools, but I was too late. I thought her new boyfriend would help her with the housework. Is this a joke? As far as I can tell, even with his pension, he doesn't have enough to feed himself, let alone her. Speaking of good old Calvin, he's really mad at you. Actually, I think he's trying to find you. I mentioned the word retribution. Oh shit, I hadn't thought of that. He should have repented, not retaliated. If you're referring to the visit Hector paid him, then I don't think it turned out the way you guys planned. Have you talked to Hector? No. What the hell are you talking about? Hector was just going to beat him up a bit. I'm sorry, Dad, but that's not how it ended. It seems Calvin had a black belt and some kind of martial arts technique. I guess Hector didn't know that, and Calvin ended up beating him half to death. Hector was lucky to get out of there alive. Well, I didn't plan on it. Anyway, that's why Calvin's trying to find you. According to Mom, he's mad as hell, and he's going to make you pay dearly. I think he's trying to track your phone. I keep it off most of the time. Thanks for the news. I'll call you back in about 2 weeks. In the meantime, don't worry about me. I'm all right. I hung up the phone and saw that Sky was sitting and smiling at me. That's when I realized I hadn't mentioned to my son that I had a shipmate. Oh my God, Doug, it looks like 2 angry guys are trying to track us down. Daniel, too? According to my father, Daniel has taken an extended leave from work and is determined to find me and make me pay for my disrespect to him and his family. What the hell does his family have to do with all this? Daniel thinks that by destroying Cordell's yacht, I insulted both him. He has to take revenge somehow to save face. My father is trying to find out more, but Daniel has disappeared. Is Daniel prone to violence? As far as I know, he was arrested at least 3 times for assault, but all complaints were settled by his father before the case went to court.
I have a feeling that someone just hung a target around both of our necks.
Doug, I'd love to have a cold beer and a hot pizza tonight. Are we anywhere near here? 10 minutes later, we were on our way. The pizza seemed delicious, but the beer was even better. After living together for several months in cramped quarters, Sky and I have become much closer. It was a platonic relationship, but it suited both of us. A 15-year age difference helps to suppress many healthy desires. Strangely enough, this issue has never been discussed. We just considered our daily communication to be normal. We enjoyed our evening beer, but we never overused it. It was more like a father-daughter relationship. I don't think any of us thought about anything more. I was uncomfortable with the fact that two men were trying to find us. Both seemed to have serious grievances, or at least that's what I thought. I didn't know what to do, but I felt I had to do something. I called Sky's ex-husband. The divorce took place a month ago. Daniel, how are you? This is Doug, the guy who stole your wife. A short string of curses followed by a short question. Where are you? You pathetic bastard. I'll find you sooner or later. Relax. Danny, I decided it was time for us to meet. How soon can you come to Savannah? Tomorrow. Is it soon enough for you? I thought it was Saturday morning. You'll have a couple of days to get ready. I'll call you tomorrow and let you know the time and place. I'll be waiting. I didn't answer and just canceled the call. You're not going to date him, are you? This man is crazy and he is dangerous. He'll probably bring a gun with him. Sky was seriously worried and I was touched. I'm working on it. Let me check something out and then I'll call you again. A quick internet search gave me the information I needed. Now, to complete my plan, it wasn't difficult to find out Calvin's cell phone number. Calvin, my friend. This is Doug Graves. I've got a new pair of dancing shoes and I'm dying to try them on. Are you interested? You know perfectly well that this is so. Where the hell have you been? You can't get away with it this time. I'm not trying to escape. We need to talk. It looks like you need to change your attitude, and I'm the person who can do it. Your friend Hector tried it. And how did he do it? Can you be in Savannah by Friday morning? I'm already halfway there. Good. Meet me at 10 o'clock at the food court at the Fairway Mall. I'm alone and, most importantly, put on a red MAGA cap. What kind of stupid cap is that? That's the thing. You put on a cap and I'll show up. You'll never see me without a cap. If I'm going to kick ass, I want to make sure it's the right thing to do. You're a funny person. I'll be there. You'd better show yourself. Sky was laughing like crazy when I ended the conversation. You're a stupid old man. You don't know anything about karate, do you? You'll just get crushed. I just laughed and shrugged my shoulders. We relaxed, admired the sunset, and drank beer. Life was good. I made one more call before we went to bed. Danny, baby. This is Doug. I just thought I could call you and arrange for our meeting. This is Daniel, and you wipe your ass. No one calls me Danny. I'm approaching the Georgia border. Where are we meeting? Meet me on Friday at 10 o'clock in the food court of the Fairway Shopping Center. I'll be wearing a red MAGA cap and dancing shoes. What do I care about your shoes? Because I'm going to kick your pathetic little ass. I didn't hear the rest because I turned off the phone. All I heard was Sky giggling again. She really giggled a lot. A few hours later, we safely docked at the Freeport Marina. We did all our usual repairs and had a great dinner with crab cake. The sky was a bit overcast, so I was glad that we had reached a safe harbor. By the time we reached the boat, the squall rope was almost over our heads. We quickly double-checked all our mooring lines and made sure everything was secured before locking the boat up for the night. I was still sleeping in the main bunk and Sky was sleeping in one of the bunks in the galley. A few hours later, the storm broke out with renewed vigor. The combination of lightning, thunder, and wind was too strong for my stowaway, and I found her sneaking into my bed. None of us said anything. By morning, the storm had subsided and Sky was still sleeping quietly next to me. I got up quietly, leaving her there. About half an hour later, she went upstairs to get some fresh coffee. Nothing was said about how the night went. Since it was Friday, we decided to go to the Breakfast Club for brunch. We had to wait a bit, but we were able to take a comfortable seat next to the TV at the end of the counter. It was just around 10:30 when the local news stations announced it. There was a shooting at the Fairway Mall this morning. An unknown man in a red MAGA hat was shot dead in the food court of a shopping center. For no apparent reason. The shooter refused to drop his weapon, after which he was shot dead by the mall security. Police. Both men were found dead at the scene. The authorities are trying to establish their identities and motives for the skirmish. It was a serious news release, and I had to pay our bill quickly so we could leave the restaurant. Sky could barely contain herself. You are a treacherous, dirty creature. You've been planning this from the beginning, haven't you? She giggled again. Of course not. How could you think that? We spent the rest of the day relaxing and finishing all the beer we had. That night we slept together again, but nothing happened between us. Early the next morning, the tugboat headed south while Sky was still asleep. That day, I decided to call Robert and find out how things were going at home. After a few minutes of friendly chatter, I had to ask an important question. How is your mom doing? She's mad as hell. Everything seems to be going awry for her. She can't pay the bills and apparently hasn't seen her boyfriend in over a week. He told her he had some business and just left. She finally made a deal with the bank. They're going to take the house back. In general, she signed and returned the divorce agreement. She seemed pleased with that. What is the divorce agreement? You didn't file for divorce. Damn it, no. Where and when could I do this? I have no idea what you're talking about. All I know is that a guy came to the house with all the documents and a check for $20,000. She signed the papers, grabbed the check, and escorted him out the door. She thought you had applied. Robert and I talked for a few more minutes about other things. He and his girlfriend were thinking about getting married at Christmas and wanted to see if I could attend. I assured him that I would do my best, and at the last moment I asked him to include it in the +1 list. I didn't know how long I'd be with Sky, but I decided to play it safe just in case. Of course, I refused to answer any other questions raised by this statement. I have never commented on the disappearance of my wife's boyfriend. I ended the conversation just as Sky staggered upstairs. She really wanted to drink coffee. We spent 2 days in Jacksonville. Sky managed to find out that her father arranged my divorce. When I asked her why he did that, she replied that it was because she had asked him to do. I had a hell of a lot of questions about the legality of all this, but I decided not to bring them up. I also had a lot of questions about why she did what she did. There has never been anything romantic between us. I was extremely careful not to cross that line in any case. Before I knew it, she had lured me into a trap with her old hackneyed conversation. And I think she was pretty. Did I think she was too young for me? Was I too old for her? Was I ashamed when I was seen with her? It went on and on. She seems to have liked me over the last couple of months. Of course, I was completely fascinated by her, but I never even thought about continuing the relationship because of the age difference. For some reason, we used to completely avoid any conversations of this kind. Now I felt uncomfortable. That night I slept in the galley. When she came in the morning, I had already made coffee. She didn't look rested. Doug, I'm sorry I messed up so much. I thought we were getting along pretty well, and I was hoping that if I pushed things a little bit, we could get a little closer. I guess I went a little overboard. I need to talk to your father. Oh shit, you're going to leave me. Aren't you? I tried. Doug, I really tried. Is there any way we can figure out how I can stay? That's not the point, Sky. I don't want you to leave. I just don't know how I can continue to live with you without getting too carried away. I like your company. I like being with you. It's an age factor, isn't it? I shrugged my shoulders and nodded in the affirmative. We've already gone further than I think is necessary. I'm starting to feel like a dirty old man who's taking advantage of an innocent young girl. I don't want to feel that way, and I don't want your father to look at me that way. Doug, why do you think my father agreed to speed up your divorce? I wanted to ask you about it. Why did he do it at all? I kind of asked him if there was anything he could do to help. I thought it would be important to you. I didn't know he'd actually done anything until you mentioned it. I was hoping that you would feel less guilty about our relationship if we divorced. I think my father wants us to stay together. Why? I'm too old for you. You need a young, courageous, healthy guy, not an old, haggard weirdo. I think he's looking for a way out. I've been an undisciplined child all my life. All I did was upset my father. He feels responsible for me, but I think he would prefer to pass the baton, so to speak, to someone else. He thought Daniel could tame me a little bit, but he was wrong. By the way, Daniel was his chosen one, not mine. He's never even met me. Sky took the English muffins out of the toaster. We sat for a few minutes until we watched the peanut buttermilk in the hot corners and cracks. The sky was clear and the day promised to be beautiful. Everything was peaceful. I've never tried to tame you. It took Sky's father only 10 minutes to allay all my concerns about our relationship. He was very glad that I at least thought about staying with her. Everything seemed to fall into place, which I hadn't even planned. The tugboat continued to move south at a good pace. I liked that there was a little more open water, but the little ship handled it well. Finally, Sky and I were able to end our relationship in the biblical sense of the word. I was amazed at my ability to withstand the onslaught. Fortunately, after 3 days, everything leveled off a little, but she still couldn't completely calm down. Robert told me that Connie found out about what happened to Calvin and was devastated. Under the circumstances, she realized that the money she received from the divorce process would not last long. Once the divorce was not yet final, she hoped to achieve some changes. Fortunately, she still had no idea where I was or how to contact me. My plan to leave worked better than I expected. Sky and I were in no hurry, but we received a text message from her father asking us to meet him in Fort Lauderdale next Saturday. He even indicated the GPS coordinates. We had plenty of time, so we didn't have to rush. I tried to find clothes that I thought would be suitable for meeting Sky's father and found that most of my original clothes no longer fit me. I think I've lost a lot of weight in the last few months. I wore shorts and swim trunks with an elastic waistband most of the time, so I didn't notice the difference. We stopped by Delray Beach for a while, and Sky had a great time picking out everything I might need. Of course, she bought some new things for herself as well. We planned everything down to the smallest detail and arrived at our destination exactly at the appointed time. My lunch at the port with Franklin Graves went much better than I expected. He seemed not only genuinely pleased to see us, but also very grateful that I was able to get closer to his daughter. All my worries were in vain. Sky was surprisingly quiet and stayed close to me. After lunch, he insisted that we take a walk around the marina. The conversation was light and casual, but I got the feeling that he had some specific direction in mind. Doug, what do you think about this? We were standing in front of a brand new tug, Nordic Tug 44. Everything about him was perfect. He was smiling like a cat when I looked at him from the dock. Sky held my hand as I walked to the stern. Unlike my tugboat, this one had a name. I smiled, and she squeezed my hand like crazy. We both stood and looked at the old English inscription on the stern. The alternative ended.